Cool. Hello, everyone. My name is Wesley. This is Wu Can Cook. Today we're doing a honey sesame chicken that's loosely based off of a Panda Express hack that I had written a couple months ago, which is one we're going to be doing with a tempura batter, and then a couple other fun tricks that I'm going to be involving to kind of work our way into some of like the best ways that I know how to get to a crispy piece of fried chicken, which has got a couple of fun hacks to it. So I'm going to be taking a look at some of that stuff today. So if you have any questions, feel free and drop your questions in the chat. As always, I don't know everything about the things that I cook, but I know lots of stuff, so hopefully I can be helpful or informative or fun to watch, at the very least. Fun to watch. Let's see. If you're looking for the recipe, those always live over on my YouTube channel. So if you're watching over on Reddit, that's the YouTube channel at the bottom of the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, it's the channel you're already on. Lots of fun content living over there. Those new recipes, they come out every Friday. So last Friday, we did a recipe for a Korean rice bowl called bibimbap. Friday before that, we did something else that I can't remember. Oh, we did a dandan mian, which was super fun. And this Friday coming up, as in tomorrow, we have a steamed egg custard that comes from Chinese. I guess that comes from dim sum. Lots of stuff like that coming up every Friday. Those new recipes over on the YouTube channel. So if you're looking for the recipes, they all live over there. Those are pretty useful if you're trying to recreate the things that I'm cooking. They tend to be a little bit more helpful in like following along as you cook for yourself. So. But let's get into it. So my garlic has a weird growth in it today. Let's see. As with a lot of things that I cook, I'm starting off by crushing and mincing. This is going to be 4 cloves of garlic. Then followed by fine mince on about a tablespoon or about 1 inch's worth of ginger. You'll find that these two elements, they come up in a lot of things that I cook. And that's because they work really, really well as like the fundamental layer of umami. So as we're starting to like build out umami, they tend to be the first things that we'd start with, and then we sort of add things on top of it that sort of like helps us create these interesting layers of umami as we sort of work forward. So very, very often you will see a lot of Chinese food has those first two elements. And not because everything has to taste like garlic and ginger. Generally, in my experience, actually, generally you don't really taste either of them. If you've done it correctly, you shouldn't really be tasting it. It really should just be contributing to like the general flavor palette of the layers of umami that we're creating. So, with our garlic, what we're doing is just giving it a really good crush with the flat side of our knife, and that should really just do it. After that, I just gave it a really rough chop, and that should pretty much get things going for us. For our ginger, however, it's a little bit more durable, so we're going to have to do a little bit more work to get this ginger in shape, and that's because it's a little bit more tough. So we actually have to do the fine mince, whereas our garlic, we frequently will skip it. You could also, at this point, if you're feeling lazy, you could get a garlic crusher out, or you could also use a grater or just a microplane, something like that. Those are also really great like kitchen shortcuts if you don't like doing knife work. Those all will work really, really great. The problem with that I found is that you have to clean it afterwards, so I just generally avoid using more kitchen things that I don't want to clean, unless you own a dishwasher, I guess. So I'm peeling off, that's the first layer of our ginger coming off. That stuff will come off right with the back of a spoon, so don't bother pulling out your potato peelers and stuff like that for that part. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go for a rough dice first. That's going to be slices down the center first, like so, followed by one down the middle, and then go for our dice. So at this point, if you're trying to dice something, this is where you would stop if you were going for a dice. From there, though, usually if we're going for a mince, like so, we're just going to run our knife through it. And fine minces, in my experience, is just about persistence. If you don't like doing a heavy amount of knife work, this is the part I would generally recommend skipping if you don't like chopping stuff. And that ought to do it. So we're going to set these two things aside. They're going to go into our wok fry. They will be the very first two things that we go throw into our wok fry as we sort of like building our final stir fry. The last thing that is going, we generally would refer to that as our aromatic elements, for the reason because they are aromatic, as in we're looking for the aromatic qualities of them. Very, very often, I don't always use green onions. Sometimes a recipe won't really call for the use of green onions. But today I actually have some. I think that the original recipe that I had written does not actually use green onions. But today I have some and they're about to go bad, so I'm going to use them up. As you can see, they have lots of dried ends and bits to it, which is not a good sign. It means your green onions are about to go. So I'm peeling off the dead bits, and then what I'm going to do is I'm separating these. So these would be the greens of our green onions. These would be the whites of our green onions. What we're going to do is slice the whites up a little bit larger. And the whites of your green onions are going to be a little bit more durable, so we're okay with throwing these into a wok fry. They won't sort of fall apart in the way that the greens of your green onions will. Be our rice. Brandino, what time zone are we? Yeah, good question. The time zone for the streams are always in PST, so I live here in California, which is in the Pacific time zone. So the streams were always live at 6:30 PST. Right around dinner time here in the States, or here in the Bay Area. So for our greens of our green onions, we're not actually going to be cooking these, which means that means a couple of things, but the main thing that it means is that we want to slice them a little bit larger so that we can serve them as our garnish. What I like to do for the greens of our green onions, especially when we're using them as garnish, is slice them up on a bias, which will give us a little bit more like physical presence to the green onions. Whereas if we did them just straight up and down as you would with the whites, like we did with these, we would get more of a, like smaller bits and pieces. It will still work just fine, but I like doing it on a bias so that it has more of a bite to it when you actually dig into it. So that's our green onions. We're going to set the greens aside as our garnish. And then the first three things going into our wok fry will be the greens, the whites of our green onions, and this is our garlic, and this is our ginger, and these will be our first three aromatics. We will often be referring to things like aromatic elements. When we say aromatic elements, we're referring to pretty much generally going to be those three things. Cool. Yeah. Next up, I'm going a little bit off book from our original recipe. I think the original recipe is pretty straight ahead. It's just fried chicken in a braising sauce. Today I'm going to be adding some veggies, almost entirely because these veggies are about to spoil. So I'm going to use them up before they go bad. I think the original recipe, I did one version that uses some kind of veggie. I forget what veggies they were. I think they used like probably like a bell pepper and then some kind of onion. I don't remember exactly what. But the one that I'm trying to reproduce right now, it definitely does not originally contain any veggies. But today I'm using up, this is going to be half of a sweet white onion, which I'm large dicing. And then the second element that we're going to use today is going to be a whole orange bell pepper. I'm not sure how great this bell pepper is gonna go. It looks like it's about to spoil. Sexy Thing Gandalf, that's a good username. Oh, it looks okay actually. Nice. When I fry food, how do I deal with temperature fluctuations? Oh, good question. Yeah. So you definitely want to, for sure, you want to be batch cooking. That helps a lot when you batch cook. So the main thing, especially with fried chicken, but this becomes like a even bigger problem when you're working with any element that is particularly cold. So chicken is going to be a little bit colder because it's probably been refrigerated. I'm not sure about this bell pepper. Yeah, I think it's gonna be okay. Yeah, so fried chicken, what we want to be careful with is when you're working with fried chicken, anytime that you introduce something that's dramatically colder to another element, it's going to drop the temperature of the oil, right? So what we want to do every time that we add something is we want to make sure before we add the next batch that temperature comes back up, which is why I'm always pretty insistent on making sure that we have a thermometer in the fryer the whole time. So that has its good benefits, and it also has its faults too. The main fault that lots of people mention about leaving a thermometer in your fryer is that sometimes, especially if you're using a metal thermometer, it can leave a little bit of a metallic aftertaste. But I actually think it's really, really important to have a thermometer and like a constant knowledge about what temperature your fryer is. So I always, anytime that I'm deep frying, I have a fryer thermometer in there at all times, because the temperature will dramatically fluctuate depending on like what's in your fryer. So what we're gonna do is, I think today's fry will probably take 2 batches. What we're gonna do is fry the first batch and then remove it. And then fry the second batch and then remove that. Then reheat the oil, and then we're gonna double fry it. So we're gonna add it back to the fryer and then do the second fry. But after each fry, we want to remove it and then wait for that fryer temperature to come back up. And then the other thing that I love doing is adding or heating up the fryer. So we're looking for is about 350 F. What I like doing is overshooting it just a little bit, like 365-ish, right around that world. And that just sort of like accommodates for the fact that if your chicken, especially on the first fry, is a little bit cold, that's going to drop the temperature of the oil. So I like to overshoot it a little bit, and that will accommodate for the fact that as soon as that fried chicken hits the oil, it's going to drop the temperature a little bit. Good question, though. Cool. Actually, we're not done cutting. Let's see. Let's do our sauce first. All right, so next up we have 2 more elements. The first is our sauce, so we're going to get to our sauce first, and then the second thing is going to be... Good look. Oh, you subscribed on YouTube. Cool, thank you. All right, so that's 4 tablespoons of soy sauce going into our sauce first. What we're going to do here, this is going to be our braising sauce. You could kind of think of it as a braise. It's not really a braise because it's not actually going to spend that much time in the wok. What we're really going to be doing, it's more like a glaze. I guess it would be more close to a glaze than a braising sauce. But essentially the idea is we're going to be tossing our fried chicken in the sauce. So the big problem with that, anytime that you're tossing anything deep fried in a sauce, is that that's going to start working against the crispiness of the fried chicken. So there's these 2 opposing factors. The first factor is that we're after really, really crispy fried chicken. The other factor is that we're trying to glaze the thing. But the glaze, if it has too much water, it's eventually going to start breaking down the crispiness of your fried chicken. So the main thing that we're after when we build glazes is making sure that we don't have too much moisture in the glaze. Otherwise, it's just going to start working against the crispiness of your chicken. The audio is scuffed again. That sucks. 1 second. This dumb mic. Check, check. 1 2 1 2. Check. Check, check. 1 2 1 2. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, check, check. 1, 2. Sarah, yeah, it always sounds good on YouTube because the more expensive mic is on YouTube. The nice mics are on YouTube. All right, let's see if this is working again. Check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, check. Check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check. Oh my God, this fucking mic. What else can I try to do to fix this thing? All right, check, check, 1, 2. Mic check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, 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 1, 2. Mic check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, check, check. All right, that might be as good as it gets. Sorry, guys. If the mic is still not working on Reddit, I've been told that it works great on YouTube. So if you're looking for a better stream, I think that it's just going to be higher quality on YouTube. So. But yeah, if it's still not working on Reddit, pop over to the YouTube channel. They're telling me that it's working great over on YouTube. The problem is that so I have two different mics. There's one mic that goes to Reddit. There's one mic that goes to YouTube. The nice mic is on YouTube. And the mic that goes to Reddit is the one that we're trying to crowdfund to replace because it's made in the 80s. And it's falling apart. So that's why it keeps falling apart. That's why every time it seems like every time that there's like, if you hear like static going on, that's probably from the shitty mic that's going to Reddit. So sorry about that. Anyway, let's see, where are we? Yeah. Ooh, Polly, this week you got a load of Shaoxing wine and sesame oil. That's good. Yeah, those are like two of my favorite elements to Chinese cooking. Your phone was right next to your girlfriend's head. Yeah, that's a problem. Sorry about that. All right, back to our sauce. So this is 4 tablespoons of soy sauce and 2 tablespoons of sesame oil to start things out. And then next up is going to be 2 tablespoons of fish sauce. And finally is going to be 2 tablespoons of doubanjiang. Doubanjiang, if you've never worked with doubanjiang before, it's a Chinese fermented chili paste. So what we get out of it is a lot of like very, very aggressive heat. So you want to go very easy on this stuff because it is. So I guess you could call it spicy. I would call it spicy. But I'd say what I like to describe it as is a little bit more than just spicy. It's just like very aggressive, which means that it can overtake a recipe very, very quickly if you use too much of it. So you will very rarely see me using more than a tablespoon or 2 of it today. Today I'm just using 2 tablespoons of it, and that's actually going to be quite spicy. So, and that will be the primary liquid parts of our sauce today. So the big thing that we're going to be working against as we sort of build out this, I shouldn't call it a braising sauce, more of like a glaze, is all of that liquid element, because the more liquid, I mentioned this earlier too, but the more liquid that we add to a glazing sauce, the more trouble we're going to be having with keeping the sauce, keeping the fried chicken crispy. So the other 2 elements that we're going to be adding today are all of the things that are going to be making it glaze-like. So the first is a 1/4 cup of sweet chili sauce. The way that I like to refer to sweet chili sauces is sort of like the sweet and sour sauce that you will often see on like the Lazy Susan on the table next to the soy sauce. So it's like the sauce that you eat egg rolls with, That's how I like to think of it. And I found like a really, really useful and interesting element of sweetness that you can add to a dish in replacement of just plain sugar. So super, super often you'll find a lot of like Americanized Chinese will involve like a lot of just like either like brown sugar or literally just straight up like white baking sugar. So what I like to do is remove some of that sugar and replace it with things like sweet chili sauce. So today, I think the original Panda Express hack that I had written, it uses like half a cup of honey. And in the recipe that we're doing today, which is sort of like deviating from the original Panda Express recipe, I think I cut the honey in half and then I added half a cup of sweet chili sauce, or a quarter cup of sweet chili sauce. Sorry, you were made in the early 80s and you're not falling apart. That's good. Good to know. Yeah, I hate this stupid mic. I also can't say too much about it because I got it for free, so. But we desperately need to replace this dumb mic. Yeah, cool. So, this is our sauce. We're gonna set this aside. And move on. Let's see. Let's do our chicken next. Yes. Today we are going to be working with, this is going to be some chicken thigh, which we're doing for deep fries because it's going to have a little bit more fat. And it's kind of going to contribute to a little bit more richness to the fried chicken today. If you don't have chicken thigh, you can also just use chicken breast and it will pretty much taste the same. I oftentimes will use them interchangeably. They really don't, it doesn't make a huge difference. The primary difference is, people ask me all the time what's the difference between chicken breast and chicken thigh. The primary difference, I guess the biggest difference between chicken breast and chicken thigh is that chicken thigh contains a lot more fat. So that would be all of this white element right here. All of this, that's all fat. So what lots of people like to do is trim off that fat just to like make your chicken thigh a little bit more lean. But I hate doing that because it's kind of the best part about the fried chicken. So I like to leave that fat on. And generally, anytime that you're eating chicken in Chinese food, it's almost always going to be chicken thigh, and it's almost always going to have that fat still connected. So I realized this recently, but chicken breast, it's very much an American thing. You very, very rarely will see chicken breast come up in like authentic Chinese cuisine. Although I do see it come up a lot in a lot of like Americanized Chinese cuisine, so I see it in a lot of like Panda Express, PF Chang's, stuff like that. But more importantly, I think the main reason that you oftentimes will see that, or you will oftentimes won't find chicken breast in Chinese food, I think it's specifically and just because chicken breast is a lot more expensive, or a little bit more expensive. Not a lot, but a little bit more expensive. Yeah. Ooh, yeah, that's funny. Yeah, gochujang chili paste. Yeah, I actually, Paul, I'm glad that you mentioned that. So that reminds me of two things. The first thing that reminds me of is that if you're looking for doubanjiang and you can't find it, my favorite replacement for doubanjiang, sometimes I'll even use it instead of doubanjiang, is gochujang, which is the same thing, but it comes from Korean cuisine. I very, very often will use the two interchangeably, especially if I run out of one of them. But the difference is that gochujang has a little bit more sweetness and sugar to it. It's got a little bit more like thickness to it, but it's a very, very similar kind of heat that I like. So I oftentimes will use them interchangeably. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that I actually found gochujang at my local grocery store today, which was a surprise because I live in Chinatown, and anything that doesn't come from Chinese food, it's really, really hard to find here. So I was so stoked that I found gochujang in the Chinatown grocery store because it's really hard to find that stuff. All right. Doenjang. Oh, I don't know about. I've never used that sauce before. That sounds interesting. Cool. So that's our chicken thigh. We're dicing that up pretty large. Not super large, but I like to go pretty large with my chicken thigh here. And that's mostly because if you cut the chicken thigh too small, it will probably like disappear in your fry. So we don't want to lose it in our fry. So I like to go for a little bit larger pieces. We also don't want to go too large either, otherwise it's going to be really annoying to eat. You're going to have like really big pieces of fried chicken, which I guess isn't the worst thing. But important to find your middle ground. I usually like to go for pieces about this size, which is like, I don't know, about an inch. Yeah. Cool. All right, next up is going to be our tempura batter. So a tempura batter, unlike other forms of fried chicken, especially like the kinds that you will come across in like the States, very, very often American fried chicken will have a multiple, two different stations. So super often if you're getting like Southern fried chicken, for example, or like any kind of like fried chicken that comes, basically any fried chicken that comes from America, we'll have like two different stations. So we might have like an egg wash first, so something wet. Sometimes that's egg, sometimes it'll be buttermilk, anything that will be wet. And then on the other side, you'll have your dry station. So you'll have like flour, it might be corn flour, potato flour, any kind of like dry element. And very, very often in American fried chicken, you will see it will be dipped once in the wet station and then dipped once in the dry station. And that's how you get that nice craggly bits and pieces of your fried chicken. In a tempura batter, it absolutely doesn't work that way. It's, I guess that's why you call it a batter. It's just one station, so it's just going to be one cohesive batter that we're just going to toss our chicken in. So the difference being that we have to treat our wet elements slightly different. The main thing that I like to keep in mind when we do tempura batters is that we don't want the yolks. So I like to remove the yolks, and that kind of gives us a little bit of a fluffier texture. So here are our yolks. We're going to set that aside. I like to use people ask me all the time what to do with the egg yolks. I only know one thing that's useful for egg yolks, and it's adding it to a carbonara would be very nice. Kind of gives like a little bit more richness. The amount of guitar players on our fan is too damn high. Occult Santa, yeah, the mic is rubbing. Yeah, we've been trying to fix it all stream, but I have no idea what's going on with the mic today. I have one more idea. Maybe I'll change the battery. Alright, maybe this helps. Maybe this just might make it worse. Check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, 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 1, 2, 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2, 1, 2. I think it just got worse. It did get worse. Oh my god, this microphone. Check, 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 1, 2, 1, 2, check, check, check. Oh my god, it got worse. Yeah, it did get worse. Maybe I should just stop trying to fix it. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, check. Alright, that might have worked. I don't know. You've always had issues with it? Yeah. Yeah, when the phones aren't super connected. Yeah, so we've been having trouble with the Reddit microphone all stream. I don't know what's going on. I kind of just gave up. So if it's still scratchy, feel free to pop over to the YouTube channel. I've heard that the YouTube channel is working great. So sorry for your ears, though. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. A little bit less. Oh, cool, yeah. Dark soy sauce. Ooh, yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, dark soy sauce is tricky. Dark soy sauce, so Matt, yeah, for sure. Well, I guess that was Matt and Paul. Dark soy sauce for sure is one of the hardest ingredients that I work with, just because it's like so concentrated that it's really easy to mess it up. Because you like if you add too much of it, you could add too little of it too because it's so concentrated. But it's also like such an interesting and unique flavor. The thing that I like to replace dark soy sauce with often is oyster sauce. And that kind of depends on what you're making, but super often I'll use, in place of dark soy sauce, I'll use oyster sauce in things like pad see ew, pad ki mao, even like a Shanghainese lion's head, stuff like that. I oftentimes will use a little bit more oyster sauce and then just leave dark soy sauce out. But I always remind folks is that dark soy sauce and soy sauce are not similar at all. So I don't like using them interchangeably. Because dark soy sauce has like a very different thing going on. It has a little bit of sugar, a little bit of sweetness. It's a little bit more thick and like syrupy in texture, whereas like soy sauce is going to be a little bit more cutting. Yeah. Oh, Tim, yeah. Wow, turning on. Thank you. Cool. Your mom's credit card is trembling. Yeah. Wow, 9 hours of airtime. That's crazy. Cool. So this is our tempura batter. It is equal parts. That was a quarter cup of flour, a quarter cup of cornstarch, 2 egg whites, and then that was a quarter cup, which is I think the secret ingredient to my particular version of tempura batter, is a quarter cup of soda water. So that soda water does this fun thing when we start mixing it together, where it creates lots of little bubbles in the carbonation, and that bubbles creates this nice effect of like kind of creating these interesting little bits and pieces of like craggly elements to your batter, which I love doing because it just kind of adds like a little bit more fluff to your tempura batter than you would otherwise do if you were just using like plain old water. If you don't have soda water, you can also just do it with water. I used to do it with water all the time, and it works just fine too. But if you have soda water, I tell you, it makes a little bit of a difference, and you get a little bit more fluff out of your tempura batter. Yeah, soy sauce. Yeah, dark soy sauce, hard candy. It would be a terrible thing to get on Halloween, for sure. All right. So that's our tempura batter. I'm going to head over to the stove real quick, and then we're going to start getting our fryer oil heated up. So this is, I think this is, yeah, I guess this is almost 40 ounces of fryer oil. I started using a little bit more fryer oil. I used to do this in 12 ounces of fry. I found that like having a little bit more fryer oil actually like helps make sure that the temperature of the oil stays a little bit hotter. So if you don't want to buy too much fryer oil, you can probably do it with just 12 ounces. I used to do my fries with just straight ahead, just 12 ounces, and it was working okay. But I found that if you add a little bit more fryer oil, it kind of helps to keep the temperature of the oil a little bit hotter. So I guess that was one thing someone was asking about, how to like regulate temperature in your deep fries. And that was another big thing that I kind of like figured out, is use a little bit more fryer oil, and it will kind of like help keep that temperature a little bit hotter and regulate it a little bit better. But the other thing that I also like to mention is I love deep frying in a wok. Whereas like lots of folks you'll probably see most folks deep frying in a Dutch oven or like any kind of like very large stock pot. But the reason I love doing it in a wok is because a wok has this big wide base to it, which means that you can deep fry in less oil. So because a wok is round bottomed like this, the fryer oil kind of like spreads out in a little bit more surface area. So it's a little bit shallower, but at the same time it has a wider surface area, which means that you can deep fry more stuff in less oil. So I find that's really, really useful. Cool. Matt, should you even buy? Yeah, should you even bother using a wok if you have an electric stovetop? Yeah, that's lots of people ask me about that. I think so. I have not experimented too much with using a wok on an electric range. I know that there's one really big problem with electric ranges, and this is especially a big problem on induction tops, and that's that on an induction top there's a heat capacitor. So what happens is the way that induction tops work is that they heat up to a certain point with that coil, and then they turn off. And then what will happen is that capacitor will switch back off, and then you'll get that the heat element will turn back on again when it hits a certain low point. What that's doing is essentially just regulating the temperature of the stovetop. What that does is it's operating on one fundamental assumption, that your frying pan has a heavy bottom to it. So if your heat element turns off for like maybe 5 seconds or so, and you have a heavy bottom to your wok, or you have a heavy bottom to your pan, it's still going to be fine, because the heavy bottom of the pan is going to retain enough heat where 5 seconds off heat is not going to make that much of a difference. But in a wok, if you turn the fire off on a wok for even 5 seconds, it will become a big problem, because the temperature of the wok is going to dramatically change in 5 seconds, because a wok doesn't have a heavy bottom. So what I found, I think the best solution that I have thought of so far is that if you're on an electric stovetop range, the one thing I think I can think of two things. So probably the first thing is, if you really want like a true wok that you can operate like any normal wok would, is go for a flat bottom wok, because I think that some flat bottom woks will have a heavy bottom to it, so it's going to feel a little bit like a normal frying pan. And then the other thing that I can think of is, if you don't want to do that, a cast iron wok would work really, really well. The problem with a cast iron wok, as you could probably guess, is that a cast iron wok weighs a lot. A cast iron wok is probably going to weigh like upwards of like 30 pounds. I used to own one, and like it was really, really heavy. Like you could do like bicep curls with that thing. Because it's entirely made of cast iron. So it's going to be really heavy because it's made of cast iron. But what that also means is that since the whole thing is made out of cast iron, it means that the whole thing is going to have really, really good heat retention. So it will be like, you could heat that thing up and it would literally stay the same temperature, even off heat, for like 5 minutes, because the whole thing is made out of cast iron. So I think, in my opinion, that would probably be the best solution, is just get yourself a cast iron wok. And then it doesn't matter what you're heating on, because the thing is going to stay hot forever. It just means that you wouldn't be able to really toss the wok. You can't do like any kind of tossing, which means that all of your like wok cooking has to happen in the spatula itself. So kind of a give and take. But if I was cooking on an electric range, that's probably the first thing that I would do, is go back to a cast iron wok. Yeah. Cool. So I'm heating up my fryer oil right now. We're looking for 350 degrees on our fryer, 350F. We're at like 160 right now, so we're gonna let that thing heat up. And then once it's ripping hot, we're gonna start frying some chicken. Matt, yeah, let me know if you're on an electric range and you get a wok. Let me know how that goes for you, because I haven't done much electric range cooking. I haven't been on an electric range since I was a little kid, so. But yeah, so I've never actually tested that in theory. I have cooked on a cast iron wok quite a bit, and that has always worked really well for me. When I had a cast iron wok, I never really like thought about like how heat retention was working, because the cast iron wok would literally just stay hot forever. It would stay hot like 5 minutes after I finished cooking. I would like have to wait a disproportionate amount of time before I could clean the cast iron, because it was so hot, you know. But yeah, let me know how that works out for you. I'm very interested to know. Yeah, flat bottom. Oh, flat bottom is better for your crappy electric burn. Yeah, for sure. Cool. Oh, revolution. How do you dispose of your fryer oil? Yeah. Yeah. So lots of people ask about fryer oil stuff. It's tricky. There's only one real way of disposing of fryer oil, and that's you got to take it to an oil recycling plant, which is annoying because you have to like drive somewhere to throw stuff away. But fryer oil, actually any kind of oil in general, it can't be thrown away. It doesn't go in landfill. It can't be thrown into recycling, and it also can't be composted. You can't throw it down the drain because it will clog your drain. So you don't want to do any of those things. Be very careful, especially down your drain. Don't throw fryer oil down your drain. It will absolutely clog your drain. And then you're going to have a very expensive plumbing bill. The best things that I have thought of so far is just about like reusing the fryer oil. So I like to put my fryer oil through a coffee filter, and that usually will get me like 4 or 5 runs through it, sometimes like 6 runs. Last time I used it 6 times, and the 6th time was a little bit iffy. But eventually what will happen is it will start getting so dark that it won't really like, it will start imparting colors to the things that you're frying, so it will make things a little bit darker. So around the 5th or 6th time, after like putting it through the coffee filter, you eventually will have to throw it away. And usually what I'll do is I'll bottle it up, and then I'll keep it in my garage with the motor oil that I like, that I need to recycle. And that sort of just kind of builds up, and maybe like once or twice a year I kind of take a trip to the recycling plant and get rid of the oil. But so far that's the best solutions that I've thought of so far is how to reuse fryer oil. Cool. Let's see where are we at. 250. So we need another 100 degrees on our fryer. Yeah. The amount of guitars on our pan isn't, yeah. Cool, yeah. Okay, so before we start frying, I'll introduce myself one more time. Hello, if you're just tuning in. My name is Wesley. This is Woo Can Cook. If this is your first time catching one of these streams, we're here every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 6:30 PST with new recipe videos. Those are coming out on my YouTube channel every Friday. So if you're watching on Reddit, that's the YouTube channel that's at the bottom of the screen. We have new recipes coming out every Friday. Generally, when you're seeing me cooking something on stream, I'm probably cooking through a recipe that I have done. This particular version of honey sesame chicken is for a Panda Express hack that I had written and put out on the YouTube channel, I think 3 or 4 months ago or so. And it was part of a larger series that I've been doing where we've sort of been like deconstructing things that come from like Chinese American classics, which is oftentimes ends up being a lot of things from Panda Express or P.F. Chang's, stuff like that. And kind of taking a look at what are the American qualities in Chinese American food. And what would it look like if we were to try and cook those things without the American qualities. So very often in those videos I'll do 2 different versions. So this particular recipe had one original version where I used a lot more honey, and that was like the Panda Express. That was like as close as I could get to the original Panda Express honey sesame chicken. And the version that we're doing today is the second alternate version from that recipe, where I kind of like removed a lot of things that kind of make it American. So I removed a whole bunch of honey and replaced it with a couple of things that come from Chinese like traditional wok cooking. Some of that is going to be, we used fish sauce and sweet chili sauce, both of which have a lot of sweetness, but they're not like straight ahead sweetness in the way that you would in a lot of American food. So stuff like that all is over on the YouTube channel. So if you haven't checked that stuff out yet, definitely hop over and check that out. Lots of fun things going on. Those are out every Friday. So tomorrow we've got a recipe coming out for one of my favorite Chinese breakfasts, which is a Chinese steamed egg custard, which if you do it right, has a nice glass top texture to it. I did not do it right. I kind of messed it up, and it got a little bit of a wrinkle in it, but that's coming out tomorrow. So cool. Isn't Yan Can Cook going to be pissed off? I don't know. I haven't asked him yet. We'll find out. If he ever does find out, well, I would love to talk to him. But yes, lots of people ask about the username. Woo Can Cook is a reference to a very, very popular cooking show from the 90s. It was aired on PBS back in the 90s. Run by a guy, his name was Martin Yan, and he had a show called Yan Can Cook. His whole tagline was Yan Can Cook, so can you. And the username in the show title comes from that. That's where it comes from. Cool. So our fryer is at 340. We're waiting for 350. Usually what I like to do is overshoot 350 a little bit. So I'm actually going to heat it to like 360. And that's going to give us a little bit of like headroom because our chicken is going to be very, very cold. We have a couple of things in our fried chicken right now that are definitely a lot colder than the temperature of the oil. Mainly the things that are a little bit too cold are going to be the eggs and the chicken itself, both of which came out of the refrigerator. So those things are going to cool down the temperature of our oil very, very quickly. So we don't want it to start building or dropping heat too quickly. So in order to accommodate for the fact that we're going to lose a lot of heat, I like to overshoot it a little bit, aim for like 360, 365 or so. And that will just like, as soon as we add that chicken in, it's going to drop the temperature down by about 10 degrees. Cool. Almost 350. Yeah. All right. Let's do this. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be using a process, I guess, I don't know that he actually invented it, but it comes from the Kenji Lopez blog. I'm pretty sure he released that first initially on Serious Eats. The double fry method. So what we're going to be doing is frying our chicken once, and then we're going to pull it out after like a minute or so. And then we're going to rest it and then add it back to the fry for a second fry. In that process, essentially what we're doing is pulling moisture out of the fried chicken and then adding it back after about a 5-minute rest. And what will happen when we do that is essentially the fried chicken is going to become a lot more crispy in that second fry than it would have been able to do if it was in the first fry and we just left it in for one full 5-minute fry. And that's because as it sort of like rests, it's going to shed a lot of moisture. And as that moisture comes off, once that moisture comes off, we'll be able to get a much more crispy piece of fried chicken. Yeah. So let's do it. What I like to do, usually, we're mainly keeping an eye on the temperature of our oil here. But what I like to do is usually aim for about 15 or so pieces of chicken. And that's going to help us make sure that we don't drop too much temperature in the wok. Alright, it's about 15 or so. So we're going to let that go for a full minute. I'm going to give it about a minute. And then we're going to pull it out and then go for our second fry. Ooh, yeah, boiling water and soap will break it up. I didn't know that. Ooh, yeah. Albert, wok brands. So I don't have a lot of recommendations for wok brands. Mostly what I look for is like what material the wok is made out of. Though I guess it does matter like what brand it is to make sure that it's like a good quality material. I love going with carbon steel, so my wok is made out of carbon steel. I also learned how to cook on a stainless steel wok. Which is what my parents own, both of which work really well. The main thing that I recommend is just avoid anything that has Teflon in it, which is going to be, unfortunately, that's going to be a lot of the woks that you find at like Target and Walmart and stuff like that. It's going to have some kind of Teflon coating. So just watch out for anything that has Teflon on it. I got my wok. This wok comes from a restaurant supply store here in Chinatown, which very often, if you live near a Chinatown district, you will find a restaurant supply store because it's probably the restaurant supply store that supplies the restaurants in the area. So like the restaurants in Chinatown is probably coming from that store. If you don't live near a restaurant supply store in Chinatown, I've heard a lot of good things about the Joyce Chen wok that you can find on Amazon for like $30 or so. Alright, so this is our first fry. I'm going to pull it out. We're at about a minute here. You will notice that our fried chicken is very pale. This is not a done piece of fried chicken. We're intentionally pulling our fried chicken out of the fryer before it's done so that we can rest it and then let it shed some moisture before we add it back for our second fry. So I'm pulling that out, and then we're going to do our second batch of fried chicken here. Probably should have paid attention to the temperature of the oil first. That's a mistake. All right, so I'm pulling out my fried chicken, but before we add our second batch, I'm paying attention to where the temperature of the oil is at. Right now we're right around 320, so we're going to wait for that to reheat back up to 350 or so before we fry our second batch. So. I mentioned this earlier and then I forgot to take my own advice. We want to be careful about frying on subpar temperatures because that's how you get in the world of like mushy deep fries. So we want to make sure that we have enough heat before we start frying. Yeah. I don't like eating Teflon, yeah. Yeah, that's one of the problems with Teflon is that at high heats it starts leaching Teflon. I'm not sure how true that is, but the main problem that I have with Teflon is that it has a very low heat retention, or not heat retention, but it has a low heat capacity. So Teflon has the ability where it will stop heating at a certain point, which is what makes it so great for scrambled eggs, is because if you cook scrambled eggs on a Teflon pan, you can't really overcook it because it's not going to get too hot. The same problem, or that same quality, makes it bad for wok cooking because Teflon won't get hot enough to cook on wok. So you'll end up eventually with like a mushy stir fry because you're going to end up cooking on like medium heat, which is would never want to be on medium heat in a wok fry. Yeah. Oh, grasshopper, no problem. Yeah. Hello, if you're just joining today, we're doing a honey sesame chicken. It's sort of a tempura fried honey sesame chicken. It's loosely based off of a hack that I had written for the Panda Express honey sesame chicken. Today we're going to be removing a couple of American qualities that come from that Panda Express recipe and replacing them with a couple of things that come from like really traditional wok frying. Mainly the things that we're adding today is a little bit of fish sauce and a little bit of sweet chili sauce, both of which are like very sweet or like sugary in a certain way or sweet in a certain way, but a little bit more interesting and have a little bit more depth of flavor and umami than you would get if you were just using just straight ahead sugar. All right, now we're gonna go for our second fry. We're at about 360 here. I'm gonna split it. Cool. So that's all of our fried chicken into the fryer. We're gonna let that go for another 2 minutes, like a minute and a half, and then we're gonna pull it out and then do our second batch. Yeah. Cool, so while that's going, we can take a look at our first batch of fried chicken. You'll notice a couple of things about our fried chicken right now. Mainly is that it's very, very pale. This would not be a good piece of fried chicken if we tried to eat it right now. It's probably still raw inside, actually. That's very intentional. We want this to be pretty undercooked right now because we're not looking for crispy fried chicken right now. What we're looking for is a lot of moisture to sort of come off of that fried chicken. And that's going to enable us, when we put it back in for our second fry, to keep a couple of things. Mainly, it's going to be able to keep the temperature of the oil a little bit hotter. But also, it's going to help us get this nice crispy piece of fried chicken because it has less moisture in it now. So that's the magic of the double fry. Yeah. Oh yeah, copper. Yeah, lots of people mention copper pans. I have seen a couple of woks that are like completely made out of copper, which first it makes me think of two things. The main thing that it makes me think of is that that's got to be super expensive. I saw one. It was like a hand-hammered copper wok that was 100% copper. And I think it was like $500, which is crazy. To put that in perspective, my wok was, I think, $10. So a $500 wok is insane. But the other thing that I can think of where that might be a problem is that generally we don't want our pans to be entirely copper because copper leaches off into cooking. And then you eventually will start eating chemicals from the copper. At least that's what I thought. I don't know everything about cookware, so I'm not positive about that. This is clumping up more than I'd like it to. So I always assume that's the reason why we generally don't make entirely copper cooking elements. More often what you'll see is things made with a copper lining. So very, very often this is like really, really popular in like a lot of French cookware where it will have a copper bottom. So copper bottom frying pans are really, really popular because they heat up really, really quickly. And they also cool down really quickly because it's made out of copper. Yeah, usually copper coated. So you usually have either a copper coating. Sometimes you'll have like a copper base, something like that. Or like oftentimes it'll be like a copper core, and then it will be surrounded by or encased in like stainless steel. Really, really common. So I actually have one I could show you guys. Yeah. All right, but before I do that though, this is our first fry, so we're all done with our first fry here. Here's our 2 different batches. This is our first batch. This is our second batch. Right now, I'm just going to wait for our fryer to reheat a little bit. We're at 315, so I'm going to let that oil come back up, and then we're going to throw our first fry back in, and that's going to help us get this really crispy piece of fried chicken. Before we do that, though, we can talk a little bit about copper pan. So this is my copper pan. I only have one copper pan, and it is a very small copper pan because copper pan's really, really expensive. So this is a copper pan. I got it for like 30 bucks at a thrift shop. This is like a $100 copper pan because anything that has copper on it's very expensive because copper is a very expensive metal. The top of this pan, this is a stainless steel top, and then the bottom is made out of copper. This is really, really common. What you'll see is because this copper bottom has all of the heat elements that you associate with copper, so it has very, very good heat, the ability to get very, very hot very, very quickly, and will also have nice heat distribution because it's made out of copper. So the whole pan stays very, very evenly heated very, very well because of that copper bottom. That's probably like the most common way you would find copper in cookware. Is usually it will have some sort of copper bottom, mostly because it's a lot cheaper than to do an entire pan out of copper. But also, I always assumed that the reason that it's main reason why we don't make pans entirely out of copper is because you don't want to be cooking on copper top. Otherwise, it will leach chemicals into your cook. I always thought, I actually don't know if that's all entirely true. That might be a myth. I'm not sure. Yeah, carbon. Yeah, my favorite has always been carbon steel. So my wok is carbon steel, and I love it. Carbon steel has a quality about it. I guess like the most important quality about carbon steel is that it has very, very nice heat retention. So it gets really, really hot. It will stay hot as long as it's on heat. It has very nice heat distribution too, so the whole thing will heat very, very evenly, which is really, really important in wok cooking. We need that whole thing to be heated evenly. That's because woks are so large. If you don't have good heat distribution, you'll have weird cold spots in your wok, which I have a problem with in some of my frying pans actually. So. But the other thing that I love about carbon steel, so we could look at my carbon steel wok, is that it has this nice capacity to like get this really interesting patina. So I have a lot of carbon steel stuff. My knives are made out of carbon steel too, and it just sort of like patinas and ages in an interesting way, where it will just like show a general wear, which I love about cookware because it just sort of like ages as you age with it. So that's my favorite part about carbon steel cookware. Cool. All right, so we're at 360-ish, and then I'm going to add my first batch of fried chicken in, and then we're going to go for our second fry here. And on our second fry, we're going to shoot for a much more browned and crispy piece of fried chicken now. So our second fry is going to be a little bit longer than our first fry. So we're going to go for, this is going to go for probably almost 3-4 minutes. And then we're looking for a deeply golden brown piece of fried chicken at this point. Does barkeeper's friend keep clean copper well for copper? I'm not sure. I've never actually tried that. Again, I don't own a lot of copper cookware, so I've actually never tried barkeeper's friend on anything copper. The only things that I own that are copper bottom, which I would not really be super concerned with. So that's a good question. I do use barkeeper's friend on my stainless steel stuff. It works really great, but I've never tried it on copper. All of your pans are made out of lead. How are you still alive? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, LD before Reddit. Yeah, that I agree. That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. Traditionally, copper is lined with tin. Didn't know that either. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I haven't really worked with copper very often because it's so expensive. Oh, the mic is popping again. Oh man, this stupid mic. Yeah, let's just reset it. Yeah, hopefully that fixes it. I don't know what's going on with the Reddit microphone today, so yeah, Nugget. Sorry if it is popping. If it's that bad, I actually can't even hear it because I have the mics muted. Otherwise, it would feedback. But yeah, if it's that bad, you should pop over to the YouTube stream. And I've been told that the mics are working great on YouTube. So. But yeah, it has been popping all stream, and honestly I don't know how to fix it anymore. It might just be time to replace this stupid mic. All right, how are we looking? So we're in a pretty good spot right now. I'm gonna let that go for another maybe another 30-45 seconds. It's pretty deep in golden brown. I'd like to go for a little bit past that point because I really want it to be super crispy. If you're not sure, I usually just eyeball my fried chicken because I've been frying so much fried chicken that I've gotten pretty good at eyeballing it. But if you're not sure, what we're looking for is an internal temperature of 160 F inside. So get your meat thermometers out and check the internal temp. Yeah. All right, here's our first batch coming out. And then here's our second batch. We gotta heat the oil up again. Yeah, see you on YouTube, yeah. Yeah, okay, hopefully it's manageable, yeah. Sorry if it's super bad. Ooh, beer batter. I have not ever seen a beer batter in Chinese cooking, but I bet that would be really good, though. The way that I would think of it is I think a beer batter operates the same way as a soda water and a tempura batter, and that's mainly it's getting the carbonation and also the yeast and fermentation of beer to sort of engage and activate the batter, so you get all of this nice foamy qualities to your batter. I would guess, I've never actually worked with a beer batter super often. I've definitely never seen it in Chinese cooking, but maybe it's true. But I would guess it's operating the same way as the way that soda water works in a tempura batter. And I actually might try that the next time I do this. I'll pop a beer open. Did it look like it came from a Subaru? Fish, I feel like Fish MD, I feel like you might have been on the stream the last time we did. I think we were doing a dandan mian or something, and it was the sixth time that I had used that oil, and it was very dark. It was very old, and I have changed the oil. This is actually the first time I used this oil today. It's just too cheap to cook with beer. Yeah, you might see. I feel like you could do a beer batter with Tsingtao. It would work pretty well. But no, it doesn't. It doesn't look like it came out of a Subaru. Oh man. But yeah, definitely there was one stream where it was looking real bad. I think I pushed it to 6 times. I'm pretty sure was the 6th use of that fry oil, and it was like, I should have thrown this out. This doesn't look good. Cool. Oh, Paul, yeah, that's what I thought. It would make operate the same way as soda in a tempura batter, where it makes it frothy and crispy. It has alcohol, yeah. I guess the added bonus is that it has some fermentation element to it, so it probably gives a little bit more of a tang. Same way that any fermentation works in Chinese food. Cool. Here's our second fry going back in for our second batch. to go. So while that's going, we can take a look at our finished fried chicken here. Here's done fried chicken. You can see, I think the contrast on the camera is helping a little bit, but you can tell that the fried chicken, this finished fried chicken, is a lot darker and a lot more golden than the first fry, which the first fry was basically white, and that's very intentional. We want it to be very, very undercooked so that we can get this very, very golden brown fried chicken. So look. Yep. There it is. Yeah, that's what we're after. Very, very deeply golden brown fried chicken. If you're really committed, you could throw this on a drying rack. I just didn't feel like taking my drying rack out. Hypothetically, as the chicken sort of sits, it sort of like gets a little bit more soggy in the leftover oil that sits at the bottom of your bowl. So if you're really committed, you could take a dryer rack out and then put the chicken on the dryer rack to make sure it doesn't get soggy. I just don't feel like taking the dryer rack out today, so I'm just not going to do it. But all the alcohol gets burned out anyway. Yeah, I figured. But I feel like the fermented quality of the beer is still probably doing something. I'm definitely going to mess around with that the next time I do a fried chicken. Yeah, it's a total waste, but is it a total waste if you're just cooking with like Tsingtao or something? Or something cheap, Budweiser. Doesn't matter anyway. Oops, wrong camera. Oh, LD before, do I have a preference between cornstarch and potato starch for your batter? I always just use cornstarch because it's generally just because it's what I have on hand. I sometimes have messed around with potato starch, but honestly, they kind of feel the same to me. They have very similar consistency. Both of them are really, really fine. I feel like they're used interchangeably in Chinese food, and I honestly can never tell the difference. I think like what's most important in a tempura batter is it's actually not the cornstarch, it's the flour. I think the AP flour, cutting it with AP flour is really, really important because you wouldn't be able to get that really, really thick and like crisp quality if you had used entirely cornstarch or entirely potato starch. So I think that the inclusion of gluten from AP flour is really, really important. And I have done fries that don't have any gluten in it, and you won't get quite as crispy of a fried chicken. So if you're trying to keep it gluten-free, you could probably use entirely cornstarch, but it's not going to be quite as crispy though. And that is the magic of gluten. All right, it's looking good. Japanese use mirin and sake in their cooking. Yeah, totally, for sure. I didn't use any of that today, actually. Today we were using, no, so we didn't use any alcohol today. All right, here's our second batch. This is looking very crispy. I'm pretty happy with how crispy this fried chicken is coming out. Some of the larger pieces are not quite done yet, so I'm going to hold back on some of these and let them go for a little bit longer. This is also another reason why I advocate for even cuts when you chop, and that helps things cook evenly. If you don't, then you're going to have problems like this. Some of these still not quite finished. Yeah. All right, let's wrap this up. Cool. So that's it for our first fry. Take a look here. Here's our finished fried chicken. It is very deeply golden brown and super crispy because of our double fry. Meanwhile, what I'm going to do is I'm pouring out my fryer oil here very carefully. Anytime that you're maneuvering fryer oil, you want to exercise a lot of caution. That stuff is very hot. And hot fryer oil is not the same as hot water. Hot water is not nearly as dangerous as fryer oil because fryer oil will burn you and then it will continue to burn you. So oil burns, real serious. All right. So back over on my stove, here's my wok all done. We're cleaned off. I just gave this a rinse, and then we're gonna reheat this, and then we're gonna finish up with our fry here. Cool. Super important, when you finish frying in your wok, you want to give that a wipe down and give it a rinse off. And that's because after you finish frying, there's going to be a lot of debris left behind. That's going to be a couple of things, probably mostly it's going to be a little bit of batter. And just generally stuff that you don't want to end up in your wok fry. So give it a rinse off. Everything should just come right off when you rinse it. And that should do it. Yeah. So I'm going to reheat my wok here. We're going to get this thing ripping hot, and then we're going to finish up with a couple of things. Mainly, we're going to do our veggies first. So we have some onions, bell pepper, and our aromatics. We're going to flash fry those, and then we're going to pull them out, then reduce our glaze a little bit, and then throw everything together at the very, very end. And that should do it. Mike is buzzing again. Oh. Stupid Mike. Is that worse? I feel like that's worse. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2. It is for sure worse. Oh my god, this mic. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, maybe that's better. I don't know. Yeah, sorry if the mic is buzzing on Reddit. Honestly, I give up. I don't know how to fix it anymore. It is what it is now. All right. So I'm adding, this is going to be my peanut oil now. We're about 4 tablespoons of peanut oil. And then we're going to start with our long yao. Anytime that we cook in a wok, we always do our long yao first, which is essentially adding cold oil to a hot wok. And that's going to give us our non-stick coating. Then I'm starting off with my aromatics first. This is my garlic, then my ginger, and then finally the whites of my green onions, just the whites. And then we're going to let that go for just long enough until it becomes fragrant. That's usually about 10 for me, but use your nose here. Alright, next up we're going to flash fry our veggies here, so that's my onions and my bell pepper going in. And we're at this point not looking for a super tender veggie. We're really just looking to cook off some rawness from those veggies. And that should only take about a minute, maybe 2 minutes. There we go. So we're going to let that cook off. I'm going to give it maybe another 45 seconds or so. And then we're going to pull it out and finish up. Ooh, do I refrigerate the used oil? So I definitely filter it. Yeah, TD, I definitely filter it. So I like to put the used oil. First of all, the first thing you want to do is cool it down first. That's super important. If you've ever tried to filter cold or hot fryer oil, it is very hard to filter. Let it cool. That usually will take like a full, like almost 24 hours before it will fully cool down. And then once it's cooled down, then I like to put it through a cold brew coffee filter. And that will remove all of the extra particulate matter that we don't want in there. And then I don't really bother frying, refrigerating the oil. I haven't found that it really matters. But yeah, generally I'll just keep it in the pantry. All right. So that's looking good. I'm gonna remove my veggies from the wok. So I'm pulling my veggies out, and then what we're gonna do is add our braising sauce back to the wok. Plus, this is going to be about a 1/4 cup of beef stock. And then I'm just gonna let that reduce for a little bit. Usually I like to give this braise maybe 30-45 seconds. That's going to kind of like bring out some of that moisture. Vector, how hot is the wok? Very, very hot. So anytime that we're cooking in a wok, we want it to be as hot as you can get it. So you'll notice that I have not touched the temperature setting of my burner at all this entire stream. So it is literally at highest capacity of the burner as it can possibly go for 100% of the time. Yeah, for someone who dislikes the metal spatula, it's kind of been growing on me, and I think the reason that it's been growing on me is because I think like I've started to, so I wore down some of the edges of the metal spatula, and it hasn't been scratching the wok as badly as it used to. So it's been growing on me a little bit. I'm glad that someone noticed that. That's funny. All right, so now I'm finally adding everything back to the wok, and then we're just going to give everything a toss. We're not going to be cooking anything at this point. We just want our glaze to fully coat our chicken here. And at this point, we want to be pretty brief with how long this chicken stays in our wok here, because you want to remember that the longer that the chicken is in the wok at this point, the more crispiness from our fried chicken we're going to start losing. So we're working quickly here. All right, that ought to do it. Nope. Yeah, I just like to keep the neighbors awake with the clanging, but they're probably cooking in a wok too, though. All right. So that's our finish. The last thing we want to do anytime that we're wok cooking, I mention this all the time now, is we want to rinse down that wok, get everything out of the wok while it's hot. Rinse that wok down, and then reheat it and clean it off. So super, super important when you're done wok cooking is clean that thing out while it's still hot. If you try and clean your wok when it's cold, it's going to be a hell of a lot harder because things will start sticking to the wok once it's cold. Sarah, I think you can kind of see it. Yeah, to answer your question, that's the reason that I don't like using metal spatulas. So you could kind of see it right here a little bit, generally right here. You'll see a lot of scratches in the wok. See it? Yeah, you could kind of see it in the wok. All of those scratches, they're happening from the metal spatula. So as you use it, what starts happening is that the edges of the spatula start wearing down, so it becomes a little bit more dull, and it won't it will stop scratching the wok as much. It's not the end of the world. If you scratch carbon steel, it's not the end of the world because it will just eventually just start patina, and then the scratches will just like wear out, like dull over, just like anything else that happens in the carbon steel. But I've always just sort of like avoided using metal spatulas because it has been like scratching the wok. But I've been getting more into it lately. Alright, so I'm just adding this as a coat of oil to make sure that we don't start carbonizing or rusting in our wok. And that ought to do it for us. Nice. Is it a takeaway? Yeah. Cool. Alright, let's serve this up. So here's our rice. Let's wait and go on. Ooh, do the scratches hurt the patina? No, they don't really. They don't really cause any. They won't really cause any real problems with the cook. I just don't like it because it just sort of scratches the exterior and then it just doesn't look great. So it won't be the end of the world if it scratches. And like I mentioned, if you scratch a patina, all that will really happen is it will eventually just coat over in the patina again because the patina is just wear. So it's sort of like the patina is just dulling of the carbon steel. So as you cook on it, that scratch will eventually come out. But to answer your question, the reason that I have always used wooden cookware is because of those scratches. But I guess it's a give and take. All right. So I'm finishing this off with, this is going to be a pinch of sesame seed. Sesame seed, it doesn't really taste like anything, but I think it adds a nice texture. And I think the texture is what makes a huge difference, actually. So go the extra mile with your cook if you really care. And it also looks really nice, too. And then finally, a little bit of green onion. And that ought to do it. Let's use the rest of this. Let's taste this. Oh yeah, that's real good. This is one of my favorite fried chickens. Super, super crispy, really fluffy from the tempura batter, but also like very, very tender inside because of the chicken breast or chicken thigh, and just like this is one of my favorite sauces that I've put together because it just has like, it's not quite as sweet as some of the other honey sauces. Definitely not as sweet as the sesame chicken you get from Panda Express because it has like a little bit more of a complex sweetness. So it's not just straightforward sugar. It's like umami-based sugars that's coming from like the fish sauce and the sweet chili sauce. All of those things kind of creating this really like interesting and more complex sweetness that you generally don't find in like really Americanized fried chicken or really Americanized Chinese food. Oh, Matt, how do you reheat your chicken for maximum crispiness? Yeah, so the real answer to that, yeah, TD got it, is there's no real way of reheating fried chicken, which is why good answer is just don't have leftovers. You gotta eat it. Fried chicken, I don't know of a single way of reheating fried chicken that actually works. The one thing that I can think of is if you refry it, just put it back into a fryer, which I have actually done with French fries, and it works really great. But you gotta refry it, and that's the only way of getting crispy fried chicken after it's a leftover. So this chicken, it will probably stay crispy for like about an hour, maybe 2 hours, and then after that, by tomorrow morning it's going to be soggy. It'll still be good because it's going to be really tasty, but it's not going to be crispy anymore. So, yeah, the real answer to how do you deal with leftover fried chicken, keep it crispy, is don't have leftover fried chicken. That's the real answer. Yeah. Don't be a quitter. Clean your plate. Exactly. On a cast iron, yeah, if you don't want to scratch, you use wooden or silicone. Silicone doesn't work in. I've learned this the hard way. Silicone doesn't work in wok cooking because the wok heat gets too hot and it will melt the silicone, which I have never done before. This is the first and only time that I have ever melted a silicone utensil is in a wok cook, because the wok heat is so hot that it will melt silicone, which I didn't know was possible. But definitely wood, though. I usually use wood. Wood anything will do the trick for me. I love the zoom lens. Yeah. Yeah, TD, air fryer does a good job of crisping up things, but I found that it only stays crispy for a short period of time. Like when I've had air fryer stuff, it's always like it's really, really crispy for about like 30 minutes, and then it just like it's really, really soggy like immediately after that 30-minute marker, which is like, I don't know, decent takeaway though. If it's like if you're trying to avoid fried foods, it's a pretty decent takeaway as long as you eat it within 30 minutes. You never got, yeah, I didn't know that was possible. I actually have a couple, my spatula. You can't really, you wouldn't be able to see this on camera, but I started melting a spatula. I melted a whole spoon that I threw away. And then I definitely have burnt a lot of wooden utensils on wok cooks, for sure. Yeah, I had no idea that you could actually do that on silicone. Ooh, LD, yeah. Do I have any meals or restaurant? Yeah. Ooh. So yeah, I've a couple of things actually. So I started delivering food. So if you live in the Oakland, San Francisco, Oakland area, I started delivering food. It's basically the food that we cook on stream that you can order for delivery now. It's on the Chef app, shef.com. And it's basically caviar, so you could. It's essentially operating a virtual kitchen, and that's actually the reason why I don't stream on Wednesdays anymore. Is because every Wednesday I'm cooking for deliveries. So usually about 5 or 6 orders or so, folks will order like mostly the fried rices because those are the things that travel really well. But if you live in the Bay Area, you can order that stuff on Chef. And then we're working on opening or getting a vendor approval for some farmers market stuff. So hopefully in the near future, if you live in the Bay Area, you'll be able to find this food at a farmers market, which is going to be super fun because we're essentially going to be doing like a Taiwanese night market style fried rice, and we're going to get a wok burner and then just do street food at farmers markets if they let us, which would be cool. So I'm trying to get all the permitting for that, which is more work than I actually thought. So. Yeah, for reheating. Yeah, reheating food on a microwave rather than a microwave. Yeah, I've always avoided. The only thing that I use my microwave for is for defrosting meat now, and even then, it's kind of annoying because sometimes it burns the meat, which is gross. That's why if you've ever seen like have like some, especially this happens with ground pork all the time, where it will over defrost and it will essentially start cooking part of the ground meat. So you'll see it on camera sometimes. Will there be a slightly cooked spot on the ground meat? That's because it overcooked in the defrost, which is really annoying. Reese, oh, what part of the Bay? So yeah, so I'm based out of Oakland. You can get, I know that they deliver to all of the East Bay, all of San Francisco, and most of the South Bay and Peninsula. So like San Mateo, San Jose, Cupertino. Let me see if I could get the link. There it is. Yeah, so there's the link. Yeah, so I'm super stoked for that. That's going to be, so right now you can order most of the fried rices on Chef. If you live in the Bay Area, you can order most of those fried rices on Chef. And if we get the permitting right and get all that stuff knocked out, we should be able to show up at some farmers markets soon. It'll be super fun. I'm planning that with a friend of mine who's also a really good chef cook. And I've been trying to get him to stream on Reddit more. Get a food truck. Oh yeah, that would be dope. And hit South by Southwest. I used to go to South by Southwest with the band a lot. And love those food trucks. Yeah, if you're ever in Austin for South by Southwest, there's a really good food truck I think it's called Jew Boy Burgers, and they were super cool with us, and they let us like play in their like backyard while we were just sort of walking around. Those guys are cool. Reese, you're in San Jose. Yeah, they definitely deliver to San Jose. You could for sure order on Chef. Cool. But yeah, so that's sort of like what's in store. I've sort of been scheming that for a while. We're working pretty hard on getting the vendor approval for some of the farmers market stuff. The chef stuff, that's always super fun. The deliveries only go out on Fridays, and the orders close for those Friday deliveries on Wednesdays. So make sure that you get your orders in by Wednesday evening. But yeah, that's the reason why I don't stream on Wednesdays anymore, is because I'm cooking for Chef on Wednesdays now. So, and then yeah, cool. Thanks everyone. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Wesley. This is Woo Can Cook. If you haven't yet, definitely hop over to the YouTube channel and check it out. Sorry if you're on Reddit and you heard all of the microphone crapping out. That kind of sucks. So definitely hop over to YouTube. The microphones always work on YouTube, and I will replace the microphone. I'm probably going to do that later tonight, is replace this stupid microphone. We haven't hit I don't think we hit our budget goal for the microphone yet, but I'm just tired of dealing with it, so I'm just going to pay for it. So I'm definitely, today was the last straw. I'm not going to put up with this stupid microphone anymore. But yeah, if you haven't yet, definitely hop over to the YouTube channel and check out some of that stuff. There's new recipes that are coming out every Friday. So this Friday coming up, as in tomorrow, is going to be a Chinese steamed egg, which is called a zhengjidong geng. My Chinese is really bad. That might be a little bit off. But essentially what it is a steamed egg, or like a very loose steamed egg that has this really nice glass top texture. It's one of the dishes. My mom used to make it for me when I was sick, because you don't have to chew things. So anytime I got a tooth pulled, actually, I used to eat that stuff a lot. So it's that one's coming out tomorrow. Next up after that, I think, is going to be pad ki mao, I think. And then egg rolls are coming up very soon. I just finished editing the egg rolls one, so that will be out in, I think, 3 weeks. So. Yeah, cool. Yeah, $55. Yeah, we're so close. Yeah, definitely, it's very high on my priority list, is replacing this dumb microphone. So, cool. Yeah, all right. Thanks everyone. Tune into the YouTube channel. Lots of fun stuff going on. That's also where the schedule of streams lives. So if you're trying to find out what I'm going to be cooking next, everyone who's been watching on YouTube already knew a long time ago that I would be cooking this on stream, because there's a schedule and they could find out. And then, what else is the last thing I meant to mention? Yeah, I think that's it. We're working our way to 3,500 subs by the end of the month over on YouTube. So if you want to help us hit our subscriber goal, please hop over and subscribe. Cool. All right, thanks everyone. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Stoned on you all the time. as smooth as Tennessee whiskey. You're as sweet as strawberry wine. You're bad. Glass of brandy, darling, I'll stay stoned on your love all the time. Slow. If you come over and start up a conversation with just me, then trust me, I'll give it a chance. Now take my hand, stop, put Ben the man on the jukebox, and then we start to dance. Now I'm singing like, girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me, said boy. Let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too, I'm in love with your body. night you were in my room, and now my bed sheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with your body. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why? I'm in love with your body. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why? I'm in love with your body. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why? I'm in love with your body. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with the shape of you. One weekend we let the story begin. We're going out on our first date. You and me are thrifty, so go all you can eat. Fill up your bag and I fill up a plate. We talk for hours and hours about the sweet and the sour and how your family is doing okay. We'll even get in a taxi, we'll kiss in the backseat, tell the driver make the radio play. Now I'm singing like, girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me. Said, boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. And last night you were in my room, and now my bed sheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with your body. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why? I'm in love with your body. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why? I'm in love with your body. Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh, why? I'm in love with your body. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with the shape of you. Come on, be my baby, come on. 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 Every day discovering